Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the first episode of the Holistic Approach. I am Mr. Wollas, and in today's video we are discussing height and how you can ensure reaching your maximum height potential. This video will be divided in three main parts. In the first one, we will cover the correlation between height, your genes, pre-existing conditions, and lifestyle factors. Whereas in the second part, we will dive deeper into to which bracket you belong and how you might intervene in order to reach the most out of each method. And I'll be using myself as a prime example, talking a little bit more about how I managed to grow from a shy 5'2" to 6 foot, from 15 to 21, which is my current age. And in the third part, we will talk about how even if you went past puberty, you could still grow taller. But enough of that. So I will begin by saying that genetics is indeed everything, but at the same time, it's not. Alright, because I feel like a lot of people have a big misconception when it comes to this, because, okay, your parents were short, and so are you. Or maybe your parents are tall and you're short, or vice versa. But the truth is that it's a lot more complicated than this. It's not just about recessive genes and you not sleeping enough during the night and stuff. There are also other things that might affect your height, even in the present, such as, okay, perhaps you might have scoliosis, which I don't know if you knew, but can also affect quite dramatically how tall you are. It doesn't really change your true height, but it will affect how tall you are. So posture by itself is one of the easiest way to grow taller, even though in reality, what you're truly doing is restoring your height. Okay, so there are multiple ways beside fixing conditions like scoliosis, kyphosis, lordosis, or even like knee issues, pelvis tilt, which is when your pelvis is tilted from one side to the other with like degrees and stuff. And the easiest one that you probably know as well is sleeping 7 to 9 hours every day. And I'm saying 7, but I would think and I would suggest you to sleep more like 8 to 9. That's the ideal range. And because our body secretes an hormone called growth hormone. No way, right? And the role of growth hormone is to hide cell replication and basically makes it taller, which by itself is kind of an inaccurate statement, because growth hormone actually sends the signal which lead to the production of insulin growth peptide. No, it's insulin peptide like hormone, which then leads to you hypomethylating your cells, a lot of cell division, and yeah, you're getting bigger and taller. And this thing comes in waves. All right, stay with me for a second. So your growth hormone will send signals periodically, and they follow the circadian rhythm. I don't know how to say this in English actually. It's kind of a complicated word, but I think you get what you mean. It follows the day, okay? And while you are asleep, you secrete the most of this hormone, okay? So if you are not sleeping enough, what's going to happen is that you will produce less hormone, and therefore you won't get as tall as you could or might have become. Secondly, beside preconditions pre-existing condition like scoliosis and so on, and sleeping enough. Another really important aspect is dieting. Okay, you really need to consume a diet that is high in protein, which will aid protein synthesis, which guess what leads to cell division, DNA replication, and lots of growth. Because yeah, okay, your growth hormone might be really good, might secrete a lot of insulin, peptide like hormone or whatever the fuck it's called. However, if you don't have the building blocks, the materials to actually build the house, what's going to happen is that you will not, once again, maximize your high potential. And a diet that is high in protein is essential. High protein and high in unsaturated fats, which are the healthy fats per se, like olive oil and so on. Why? Well, because, you know, we talked about protein, but another really important aspect are vitamins, okay? So you got vitamins such as, for instance, vitamin D, which is essential for the uptake of calcium, which leads to bone growth, bone density, and so on. And your body can only assimilate it through the consumption of fats. So having a diet that is moderately high in fats will help you to have stronger bones and indirectly to grow taller if your bone plates are not closed yet. All right. And alongside this, it is also really important to consume enough water, because, you know, actually, I don't think I even need to explain this, to be honest, but you need to have all the building blocks necessary for you to support your growth. Otherwise, even if you remove one thing or you half-assedly decide to put it aside for a little bit, you will affect the process. It will affect the process undoubtedly. So forget about stupid things such as starve-maxing yourself in order to get hollow cheeks, or to get, like, you know, a super defined 8-pack at 5% body fat just to fit into, you know, all of this stupid peer pressure that we came up with social media and stuff. Because yes, you will look better than your peers, but think about this, you will only be 13 to 19 for 6 years of your life, 7 years if you counted them, day before you turn 20, I guess, but that's 7 years. Chances are that you will live to at least 90 years with modern medicine, probably even more like 150 to say the least, or 120. So I feel like sacrificing so much of your potential, of your possible self in order to fit into such a narrow time frame isn't worth it. But, you know, you do yourself. So it is really important to see and identify which pre-existing condition you might have, as I said before, because that can really affect a lot your height and shit. Like, you know, before I came across all of this stuff, I was at 15 probably the second shortest kid in my class, if not the shortest, in the beginning of high school, measuring roughly 161 centimeters or 62, whatever, or roughly 5'2", 5'2.5". I grew taller during the process, actually. By the time I was nearly 16, I was like 5'5", 5'6", whatever. But I had issues like scoliosis, kyphosis. Kyphosis is basically when your back is arched like that, you know what I mean? And then I had scoliosis, so my back was arching in this way. It's kind of weird, I know. Yeah. And of course, this can affect your growth, and I was exaggerating. My case wasn't as bad. But anyways, you can revert scoliosis through several ways. If you are still in your early teens or you're a kid, you can go and do activities such as swimming, visit a chiropractor or do consultation with a physiotherapist in order to make sure that you can realign your backbone in the ideal way, because your bones are still malleable enough for you to affect and change the conformation of your bone structure and backbone shape. Okay, so if you're still young enough, you might take this into consideration. And even if you are above the age of 16, okay, you can still do stuff, okay, unless your curvature isn't above the 30 degrees, to say the very least. You can still revert it back to the normal deviation, I guess. I don't know how it's called in English, but which is between the 10 to 19 degrees. That's the normal curvature. Yes, that's a word. And yeah, I mean, it also depends, to be honest, because like, okay, let's say that you're 16 and you have scoliosis, but then you end up growing like 4 or 3 inches. Well, guess what? Your scoliosis will get a lot worse, because like the more you grow, the more the backbone will grow in the wrong fucking way. So it's going to get even more complicated to fix. In my case, I was lucky enough to not having gone through my growth spurt until I was like 16 and a half, which is when I grew. Actually, I think it was between 15 to 17, which is when I grew basically from 5'2" to 5'7", 5'8", or whatever. And I was already putting into place the motion in order to fix my scoliosis, and I was young enough to make the process a lot quicker than what it would have been in case I was older. In case I would have been older, yes, that's the word. So I can't even look at these and say that it's going to be the same for you, of course, because you might be younger, you might be older, you might have a worse curvature, you might not have a kyphosis. And yeah, there are multiple factors involving into this, but I will make a video talking about how I fix my scoliosis as well in the future. So make sure to stay tuned and to check the channel, I guess, to subscribe, leave a like, whatever. But roughly, I mean, if I have to state some ways to fix this, will be through regular exercise, okay, which can help to realign the backbone through the natural motion of the body. So like, for instance, when you run, your body will eventually adapt itself into running in an ideal way if you do it consistently and you try to improve and to, you know, do it with the right form, as they say. And one thing that you really want to shy away from is heavy fucking lifting, okay? I am in decent shape myself, but I don't do none of the bullshit that I see people doing in the gym. I don't do deadlifts, I don't do squats, I don't do shoulder press, none of that. If I'm doing any exercise with any weight, I do it inclined. So instead of like staying straight, okay, what you want to do is you sit down, take your fucking bench, and then you lay forward and you do your exercise. So then you can remove the pressure from your backbone, okay? And you can simply do the same motion, which is even better for most exercises because you can isolate more the muscle groups actually. But this is not a gym video, so okay. Anyways, what I was trying to say is that you want to shy away from anything that might make things worse. Training by itself is splendid. That's going to be the quickest way to revert back your scoliosis, but only if done correctly. And by this I mean shy away from all of this nonsense and instead focus on calisthenics, okay? Or, as I said previously, doing exercises that are isolating muscle groups and which will not affect your back development or backbone, as they say. And this will indirectly also make you taller in 2 ways. Firstly and foremost, you will decompress your backbone when you're doing pull-ups, when you're doing dips, when you are even just bar hanging yourself. Secondly, this will involve something called the wolf sledge flow, which is basically trying to strengthen your bones, increase your bone density, and affect their overall size by fuck, I can't say the word, to make them thicker basically, all right? And that's one of the principles that I will talk about more in depth later, but the wolf sledge method works, and if done it in this way, it's perfectly fine because it will promote growth, protein synthesis, muscle development, and in general will also increase your testosterone production or estrogen production if you're a woman or a girl, which will help you to develop more masculine features, more feminine features, and in general will make you healthier, stronger, and look better. So train, work out, do sports, but only in a wise way. Okay, so now we are well past the first part of the video, which I know talk ages, but I think it's important to state clearly everything before proceeding with the methods, because as I said previously, there are multiple ways to solve this. It's not a one solution to like infinite problems. You got one problem and one solution, and it's like that for all of the underlying issues that you might have. So do your research and try to understand what you could have, which conditions might limit you, and what are you doing? Like, are you drinking enough water? Are you sleeping enough? Are you sleeping on your back, or are you sleeping on your sides? Are you exposing yourself to enough sunshine? Are you consuming enough vitamins? Are you eating enough fruits, enough vegetables? Are you doing exercise or not? Are you doing anything stupid? Are you stupid? It's a lot of factors combined. But I hope that now perhaps you have enough knowledge to proceed with the following part. So what I did myself was trying to understand initially, as I said, what I had. I was like, okay, I'm a short motherfucker, but why is that? Well, my parents are really short themselves. My mother is roughly 5'10", my dad is like 5'2", 5'3", and everybody in my mother's side of the family is 5'7" or below, at least with their own generation. Okay, so like my tallest uncle is 5'7", and pretty much all my aunties are 5'11" or below, and all my uncles are 5'7" or below. And I have 7 uncles, 8, fortunately one passed away, but at the moment we still have about 7 uncles and aunties in my family, in my mother's side. And in my father's side, things are a bit different. I got one uncle who's relatively tall, around 5'11", but everyone else is more or less short, okay? And so basically, by checking my genetic background, you wouldn't expect me to be 6 foot, even. And in fact, I wasn't meant to be as tall as I am today. But as I said previously, you need to understand what condition you might have. And it's not just genetics. And even the condition themselves are genetics. Like, think about this. Scoliosis can be inherited per se, okay? Like, you might be a lot more prone than someone else to develop this condition. Like, you might see people playing video games all day long and having a back that is completely straight, and then you see someone else that does it 2 hours a day, and they end up developing scoliosis because of bad posture. Okay, so genetics play a part into all of this. What I'm trying to say is that it's really plastic. It's not just how you were born and your parents, your grandparents. Nope. Genetics is life factors. Life factors is genetics. Conditions are life factors, and life factors are genetics. It's all intertwined, okay? So don't think of these as black or white, because it's not. Nonetheless, I realized that my parents were really short and that it was over for me, basically. That was my baseline assumption. But then, as I started doing some research about how to grow taller, about which time frames were the most suitable for me to begin the process, I started to understand that, okay, maybe if you look at things singularly, there is not much that I can do, but everything adds up, okay? So if you have scoliosis, which in my case was a 27 degrees angle, that's the worst one, which was the one up here, I think. And it was roughly between the 24 to 27 degrees for the wall backbone. And then I also had the kyphosis, which was a 65 degrees curvature, which is when, as I said previously, you are arching it back, you know, in this way, like fucking duck or something, you know? And yeah, I knew that by simply solving this problem, I could have gained at least 1 to 2 inches. And as I mean, the worst your scoliosis is, the more you can grow, the more height you can restore, because you are not actually growing. This is not how to grow yet. It's simply how to restore your height and ensure your maximum height potential. And fixing posture is within the restoring height department. And yes, I grew a lot during the process. I guess that we also have to take into account growth spurts. And I went from 5'2" to roughly 5'10". And this was within a time frame of me being 15 to me being roughly 18 years old. 18.5, 19, whatever. No, actually at 19 I was already a 5'11", I think. But anyways, at 15 I was 5'2", and at 18 I was at 5'10". So I grew a lot because of puberty. I looked much younger than my peers. At 15 I looked like a 12-year-old, and at 12 I looked like I was 10. So I guess that also plays into account. But it's not genetics alone, because as I said previously, my parents, my grandparents are really short, and pretty much everybody in my family is short, beside some of my cousins and family members that are more distant than my direct line, per se, bloodline. So, as I said, try to fix the scoliosis. There are multiple exercises, and if you dig deep enough, you can see how that can be achieved, and even without surgery. Surgery is the quickest way, but I would strongly advise against it, because, okay, unless your curvature is above the 40 degrees, you can still revert it back to a mild scoliosis, which is a curvature between the 20 to 30 degrees, which just by even decreasing your curvature by 10 degrees to 15 degrees, you might expect to gain roughly 1 to 2 inches of height. No, maybe 2 inches is pretty much of a stretch, but we can expect to grow anywhere between the 0.5 to 1.25 inches in height. Okay. So, okay, now we have addressed the scoliosis. We are already at plus 1.25 from your original height. What else can we do? All right, we can eat more protein. We can try to find ways to promote growth hormone secretion. And how can that be achieved? Well, calorie surplus. No way, really? Yes, eat more food, eat more shit that is healthy, of course. Don't eat garbage, eat healthy foods. And try to stay on a healthy body fat percentage, because, you know, lots of the processes involved into, you know, the secretion of hormones, synthesis, breakdown of nutrients, and body compartments are involved with how fat or lean you are. Be too lean is bad. Sorry to tell you this, it's bad. Having the super hollow cheeks and, I don't know, man, the super abs and all that. is bad. Okay, 50% body fat is ideal. 20% if you are struggling and more on the chubby side, but 50% you will look great. Okay, 50% you will already have some visible abs. You might also have a bicep pump, a bicep vein, some forearms veins, and that's good. That's healthy, and that's great. That's not amazing, but it's great, and it will work for now because you are still a fucking kid. You want to ensure maximizing your genetic potential. You don't really want to peak early and sacrifice long-term benefits over short-term gratification and peer pressure, because that's pretty much the worst thing that you could ever do to yourself. Nonetheless, in case you want to do it by all means. And I'm not saying that you should become a fat piece of shit, because that's equally as bad. Okay, you don't want to be obese or like extremely overweight, because that will promote insulin's resistance, meaning that this will impair how your body synthesizes nutrients, and your body basically will start to break down shit, or you will not be able to get as much out of your growth hormone, and will indirectly impair some of your potential height. Okay, everybody says that if you are fat you will grow taller. To some extent that works, but I guess only until you like 25% body fat. Anything beyond that will induce into insulin resistance, which is horrible, because as I said, it's not really worth it. And yeah, what else can you also do? We have talked about fixing pre-existing conditions like scoliosis, so on and so forth. We have talked about, I think, can that play a role into this? Now we can also discuss more about what you can do if you have already achieved your maximum high potential. Okay, let's say that you have managed to peak and do all of the things that you were supposed to do. Now you are still short, or you are still not as tall as you wanted, or maybe you simply want to, like, I don't know, see if you can grow any taller. What can you do? Earlier I have addressed something called the wolf sledge law. I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, by the way, but hopefully I hope that you understood what I'm talking about, which is the law that says that by involving pressure, okay, so when you're putting pressure into your bones, muscles, and so on, what's going to happen is that it will lead into some microfractures that will basically thicken up your bones, and during this process they will grow bigger. And it is indeed really true, and I've seen it myself in some of my friends. I had this guy that broke one of his arms or something, and once he was done, like once he removed the fucking whatever, thingy that he was wearing to like keep the hand in place and shit, his left hand was slightly longer than the right one, and the reason was likely to be that during the repairing process the bones became bigger, which resulted in him being slightly longer in one side. All right, and it is work. It is indeed true. Like, you can actually do this also topically. Okay, so like if you want to grow taller, for instance, as we all know, there are also some methods like breaking your knees. Okay, so I see people that are actually doing this shit, which is absolutely mental if you ask me. But if you break your knees or whatever, or I think it's or hips, I'm not even sure, but there is leg lengthening surgery, which involves in breaking the bone itself, putting something in between, and then waiting until the bone reconnects, and that makes it taller basically. You can do that on your knees, Unfortunately, you can't really do this shit on your backbone because yeah, that will make you paraplegic. You will not be able to move your body and do shit. And this is awful, to be honest. This is what I mean by the wolf sledge law. And that's the one that you don't want to do. You know, the extreme one is fucking terrible because, okay, even if you could actually, I'm not even talking about, you know, literally breaking your fucking bone to grow taller in the same manner, in the same extreme manner that some people are doing. I'm even talking about trying to like simply damage your bones in order to like stimulate growth. It's bad. At least if done directly, because long term this will cause underlying issues such as arthritis, and depending in diet and stuff, it could also lead to osteoporosis later on when you're like in your late 60s or 70s, which is something that you absolutely don't want to fucking have. So stay away from all of the nonsense and apply the law in a wise way, which is through weightlifting and training. Anything outside of that is absolute garbage. Even though it works, it's garbage, right? But I think that there is something even better, something that works even greater than trying to manipulate your bones. And that is manipulating your cartilage tissue. And to be more specific, your intervertebral disc. So think about this. On your backbone, you have something called intervertebral discs, which are, you know, the gaps between one bone, one vertebra and the other, okay? And they are meant to act as pillows, almost, to reduce trauma and shit. Meaning that when you walk, when you run, when you jump, or do any activity at all, what's going to happen is that your body will pretty much act as a spring. And this spring that we're talking about is the cartilage. Okay, so by giving you this explanation, you can already assume, if you're smart enough, that cartilage has somewhat of a plastic property, meaning that it's not as rigid as bone, and therefore you can theoretically make cartilage longer. You can thicken up your cartilage and basically change its shape a bit more easily than you can do with bones. All right, now how can you achieve this? So earlier on I explained how through stretching you can also add a few centimeters to your height. Okay, it depends in how flexible you are by default, and also on age, I guess, because like if you stretch later on in your life, what's going to happen is that usually makes people taller in the long term, because basically the older you get, the more your backbone compresses. So by doing stretching you can restore that. So since you have lost already some, you can actually restore more of your total height. Okay, but I think that basically it's kind of a two-way process, you know, and it's also quite unorthodox sometimes, because I feel like some people are doing stretchings that are awful, which can also lead to other complications like herniated discs or muscle tears and shit. So you also have to be really careful in finding exercises that can actually aid your lengthening process, which indeed works. Okay, and going back to the previous point before I forgot what I was about to say and started waffling, by doing stretching you can manipulate the cartilage, meaning that it will stretch ever so slightly. But think about this: cartilage composes roughly 1/3 of your total backbone length. Okay, I'm gonna say this again, it's roughly 1/3 to 1/4 of its total length, and it's really plastic. Even by just fucking drinking water, you can affect the length of the cartilage. And remember about this is another point that we go back later. So by doing stretching, you make them longer, and eventually, as you keep stretching and compressing and stretching and compressing, what's going to happen is that it will grow thicker. So so instead of having this much space between one vertebra to the other, maybe you'll have slightly more, which sounds like nothing, but one, you take into account that this is roughly 1/4 to 1/3 of its total length. You can manipulate to some decent degree the length of your torso. Okay, and I'm not saying that you will fucking become, I don't know, man, the tallest man in the world or a basketball player if you're short, but you can surely grow at least 1 to 2 inches in height by just doing this. Okay, and yeah, that's the method. That's the main one. Like cartilage tissue, focus on that. Forget about the fucking stupid breaking your bones mashing to grow taller. No, focus on cartilage, play the long term, and it's also really healthy, to be honest. If you can make your cartilage tissue thicker, that will decrease your risk of having herniated discs, for instance, which is when your fucking disc slips out of your vertebra, which is really bad. Like Ronnie Coleman itself had several herniated discs from squatting really heavy weights, which is also why I shy away from all of that, because like doing heavy weight lifting will compress your intervertebral discs and inevitably make you shorter. Okay, so men roughly, and women, I guess, start to lose roughly 1 inch in height every 10 years. So by the time that you're 50, you will be 1 inch shorter. For women, I think it's a bit quicker, the process. I think it's like 1.5 or every 7 years. I don't even recall the data specifically, so whatever. Anyways, and that's due to the compression of the discs. Okay, and if you start doing all this stupid weightlifting, like really fucking heavy lifting, what's going to happen is that you will start to lose the height sooner. So maybe instead of losing 1 inch after 4 days, you will start to lose that in your 30s or towards even in your 20s. So, I mean, you do you, but I will stay away from that. Moderately, yes, it's good because that will do the opposite and it will apply the Wolf's-Ledge law and therefore make your cartilage tissue thicker and your bones thicker and therefore make you taller and shit. But not in your 20s. That works only if you are 19 or below. So the only thing that you can do past 21 to 25 or whenever you finish your puberty and your bone plates close is stretch. Sorry to hear that, but that's the only method. And you can grow 1 to 2 inches, as I said. However, there are also some other ways to manipulate your height in this department. And by other methods, I'm talking about how much water are you drinking on a daily basis? Are you sleeping on your back or on your side? Because just so you know, when you're sleeping on your sides, beside making your face more asymmetrical, causing issues like acne or sternocleidomastoid problems, which is when you're struggling to like tilt your head in one way or the other, you have this stupid neck pain that sometimes is really annoying. You will also not decompress your spine as much. So basically, throughout the day, your backbone will compress itself due to the fact that your cartilage is basically compressing throughout the day, okay? Which is why you will lose roughly from anything between 1 to 1.5 inches in height on a daily basis. So if you measure yourself in the morning, you will be 1 to 1.5 inches taller as opposed to when you do this in the evening. There are some ways to manipulate these. Like as I said, through stretching, you can decrease how much height you are losing on a daily basis, which is exactly what we are trying to achieve here, okay? So instead of losing 1 to 1.5 inches on a daily basis, you want to lose only 0.5. Okay, so you want to keep your cartilage distended for as much as you can and for as long as you can. Okay, meaning that over time what's going to happen is that your body will start to aid with nutrients and shit to like increase the overall density of the cartilage tissue, and eventually that 0.5 range outside of the 1 to 1.5 will become permanent, meaning that you will gain that 1 inch permanently through the thickening process of your cartilage tissue. Eventually, then you will still lose that 1 to 1.5 on a daily basis. But what's going to happen is that you can still squeeze out a little bit more, and then a little bit more, and then a little bit more. And of course, the more you gain, the longer it takes. It's a really long process, and it's also quite painful, I would say, but it's really worth it, because within, I don't know, let's say 3 to 5 years, you can expect to gain anything between 1 to 3 inches of height. And that 1 inch is fucking guaranteed. It doesn't matter if you're 20, if you're 30, if you're 40, you can gain that. And as I said previously, men and women after their 40s will start to lose 1 inch every decade. And guess what? Through this method, you can revert the decay process, if that's even makes sense. Meaning that you can keep and retain your original height for longer, and even reverse engineer towards actually getting taller. Okay, and yeah, that's pretty much it. As I said previously, stretching is really important, and another thing is drinking water, as I said, because yeah, water is also really important when it comes to cartilage, because that's what it's aiding mainly its development alongside the nutrients that you're consuming. And there are some supplements that you could take, and I think if I see any interest, I might even make a video about all of that. And yeah, the sleeping on your sides will not decompress as much your back, as I was saying previously, and it's bad because you will have more compression on a daily basis. So if you want to avoid that, you want to sleep on your back, because that's what's going to lead to as much decompression as possible. Okay, alongside sleeping 8 to 9 hours a day, even if you are beyond your teens or childhood. Okay, because as I said, the sleeping help to decompress your backbone, and if you're not sleeping 8 to 9 hours a day, what's going to happen is that you will decompress less overall cartilage or whatever. So make sure to get your hours in of sleep, and also drink a lot of water, exercise plenty, take a lot of sunshine, take your supplements, and do this on a fucking daily basis. I will make a video explaining some of the exercises, but if I do this here, it's going to fucking take too long. So check the next upload, and I have nothing else to say. Bye.